Welcome to another edition of Who's Better Baseball. All-Star game is coming up soon. The deadline not that far away as well. This is really the height of the MLB season. We're going to be talking about all of it here today. Patrick, I'm doing great. I am doing great. My Mets have won 6 in a row. They're talking about Grimace, but I've been writing about more than that today. So there's a lot I want to talk about with this Mets team and everything else. How are things going for you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Dodgers are in town playing the Rockies. Dodgers still always at the center of the baseball world. This time, maybe for less fortunate reasons. Still, you're right. We're right in that heart of the baseball season where it really gets fun and people realize just how great baseball can be, particularly in the summertime.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned the Dodgers being in town and those unfortunate reasons, let's just jump off right there on that. Mookie Betts gets blown up on his hand. Really unfortunate injury. A guy that we were talking about on our last show as still probably the MVP front runner. And now the Dodgers have to deal without their shortstop. And this was already a question mark. We were kind of going through that as well. Like, is Mookie Betts going to stick at shortstop for the entire season? Now you got Miguel Rojas, who's now the starting shortstop of the Dodgers for the time being. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of answers internally other than that in the meantime, which that'll help him out defensively. And Rojas has been a pretty solid bat this year, but that was in a limited role. Now cast into an everyday spotlight. I don't know if Mickey's going to hold up, and I don't know how the Dodgers are going to hold up without him. Obviously, they'll still make the playoffs, but this is a big, big injury to try to overcome.
Yeah, Miguel Rojas is an everyday player. He was obviously when he was with the Marlins, and he was the last couple of years for the most part, starting 3 every 4 days is what Dave Roberts said on Monday at Coors Field. And so Kike Hernandez is probably going to spell him just a little bit there. It doesn't sound like Chris Taylor is going to get that opportunity, a former shortstop. And Gavin Lux's name did not come up, but I think we all know that that's probably not in the card. So until the trade deadline, they're going to have to stick with their guy there. And even past the trade deadline, knowing that you're going to get Mookie Betts back in the next 6 to 8 weeks, maybe you don't go ahead and target a shortstop, especially since you don't know how long Yoshinobu Yamamoto is out. And if your number one and number two in your postseason rotation are Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw, that sounds good on paper, but you haven't gotten Kershaw back, and Walker Buehler is just starting to build his momentum. So that puts a lot of weight on James Paxton's shoulder. So maybe they end up pivoting and going after some starting pitching, but the Dodgers will be fine there with Rojas at the bottom of the lineup. Probably a better defender, definitely so, a better defender than Mookie Betts. But everybody else just has to step up, and you saw that on Monday night during a 9-5 Dodgers win.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's hard to feel too bad for a team that has such a wealth of riches. And look, they can still now roll out Otani and Freeman. The lineup is going to be fine one way or the other, and they're going to make it through the season. They're going to be atop the NL West. But I think it puts them in a more difficult spot as far as trying to figure out what they were going to do at shortstop, which is already a problem. I think if the Dodgers really had it the way they want it and they could have their pick of the litter, my opinion is Mookie Betts would be returning and playing second base or right field, and they would have a shortstop in place from the deadline. The problem is, who is that guy? I mean, I look now, and Willie Adames was the guy everyone was sort of just saying, "Oh, he'll be a Dodger." You even said it on our last show. Like, we were talking about by the way, go back, watch that show because that conversation changed. If you want to go on YouTube, for those of you watching, we talked about the Dodgers having the MVP candidate or the field. And if you were taking the field last week, you just got a much better chance with this injury. But when it comes to that Adames situation, everyone thought, all right, at the deadline, Brewers will be out of it. It'll just be like Trey Turner years ago, and the Dodgers will swoop in and make a trade for a rental. Now, Adames is not going anywhere, I don't think, from that Brewers team. So the one guy that really jumps to mind as a massive upgrade that could be had is Bo Bichette. Are the Dodgers going to pull the trigger on that kind of move? And are the Blue Jays ready to listen? Because I think that's the one piece that could end up coming in out of all of this that makes the Dodgers even more formidable come October.
I don't know necessarily if that's going to be the guy. That's such interesting conversation to have because, as I just said, like the starting pitching could be an area where they feel like they don't have the postseason dogs. They've got enough of the regular season guys, and we've seen Gavin Stone obviously step up, and Bobby Miller coming off a really good rookie season. He's getting himself back into the mix. Like they've got enough quantity, but do they
We
have that
should
quality?
it came into my head. We should mention Tyler Glasnow, of course. Tyler Glasnow
Of
has been
course.
unbelievable this year. So he's the ace that you can count on at the moment. But sort of leading into the question overall, we've never seen Tyler Glasnow go beyond whatever it was last year, 120 innings. It seems like he's healthy. It seems like there's not going to be any issues there, but it's still something to think about. I wonder, can they pull off that Scherzer Turner trade 2.0? Like, what's that? So, is there a Bichette, and I don't know who that starter is? Does Bichette and Kevin Gausman get you excited? But then, how much you have to give up, because you're not just talking about some rentals, which I think for Turner and Scherzer was a rental. I think Turner was a year and a half of control. You're talking about Gausman still has a couple years on his deal. He's making good money. You have Bichette still has next year. So in that situation, if you're the Blue Jays, I mean, you could reset your farm system in one trade, but are the Dodgers going to be that aggressive? It's really fascinating to try to find the trade partner, because if you go beyond Bichette, I don't know who the shortstop is. And I think trading for any pitching at this deadline is going to cost a lot by itself.
Yeah, I think Chris Bassett could be that other guy because
Yeah.
I believe his deal is up after 2025. So if you're able to get two for the price of one, and again, it won't be the price of one because you are getting two all stars in Bichette and Chris Bassett, then yeah, it's going to cost a lot, and maybe that is the thing that moves the needle, where it does allow the Dodgers to have both of those guys, and you get them for next season as well. So now you've got Betts shifted back over to second base and right field, as I think you want, and a lot of Dodgers fans would probably prefer. Could keep him healthier a little bit longer. So yeah, that's where they got to kind of figure out what it is that they want, and they might wait closer to that trade deadline because, as you pointed out with Tyler Glass, now he been able to do it that long and that consistently before? No, he hasn't. But they are paying him like they expect him to have figured out something, figured out how to stay healthy and be durable. And he's shown that so far this year. So with those guys there, behind Glass now, like I said, the Bueller and the Kershaw looks good on paper, but are they going to have those dogs? They'll be fine in the lineup without Betts for 2 months with Rojas there, because Teoscar Hernandez, top 5 in the National League in RBI hitting cleanup. He's okay, right? They'll be able to make those mix and match moves, and the analytics department is fantastic for the Dodgers. So they're going to have the right guys in the right spots. They could end up going with some kind of platoon route. If they wanted to do that at shortstop, where they do play Miguel Rojas more frequently, and then on off days, Betts is over at shortstop, and maybe they're looking at a second baseman. But I think they got enough of those pieces around that, yeah, it would answer, and it would take care of the big question mark or a big concern to go get a guy like Bo Bichette. But I don't really know that they need to do that.
It's crazy because having Otani and Freeman covers up so much. Having Will Smith and Teoscar Hernandez covers up so much. But they're such a top heavy team. And you look at this infield, and I was just looking up right now, like, when's Max Muncy coming back? And he's dealing with an oblique, and it seems like he has just paused his swinging. Obliques can linger. Apparently, it might not be any time in the at least close future here. So you're looking at an infield, and it's pretty much Freddie Freeman, and then a lot of question marks, but they're still going to be fine. I think the one result from all of this is you look at the National League, which has so many teams in the middle, and then there was these top tier teams. It kind of pushes the Phillies even further ahead, where the Phillies should clearly be the team that finishes this year with the best record. And then the Dodgers and the Braves are kind of trying to overcome a lot here. We expect them to be great and to make the playoffs, and I'm sure they will. But I think the question now for them is, all right, we know we're going to get to the dance. How whole can we be once we get there? And that's going to be a matter of what they do at the deadline, what growth they get internally, prospects, anything else, and just trying to keep the pieces that still are healthy on the field throughout the rest of the season.
And if they think they need to go out and get another arm in the bullpen, because you just can't have enough of those
Yeah.
guys, and they're really good at mixing and matching, as we know, and they're really good at picking a guy up off the scrap heap and then really turning him into something. We almost ended up seeing that on Monday night with Michael Peterson, who was a prospect for a couple organizations, was with the Rockies recently, and couldn't really break through AAA. And here he is. He just got called up by the Dodgers, still looking to make his major league debut, a guy who represented Team Great Britain in the last World Baseball Classic. And yet the Dodgers kind of have that magical dust that they could sprinkle on guys and say, hey, no, you're in the right place and we can get something out of you. But is that going to be reliable? Are you going to be able to, rely on that guy throughout the entire month of October? That will be interesting. And so, the Dodgers, they communicate really well with every single team, and they'll get the best deal out there. So, they're going to be adding 3 or 4 pieces, right? They might not all be huge names, but they'll add 3 or 4 pieces for what they think that they're going to need to make this run into the postseason.
We talked about on last week's show the top four teams versus the field, and again, that's another video you can find on our YouTube channel right now. But I think to me, what's interesting about those four teams, and of course, I'm talking about Phillies, Dodgers, Yankees, Orioles, is they have all the incentive to push the chips forward this year, and they all have the capital to do it. So it's just a matter of which of them will and what those trades look like in a market that is going to be so unpredictable at the deadline. This is actually a topic that we might bring to the show a little bit later down the line because I'm going to be working on this in written form this week. Just what has this third wild card done to the market when you look at free agency and then the trade market? It really does make things so interesting because you have a National League right now where every team outside of your Rockies and the Marlins are pretty much pretty much in the mix. Those two are the only ones who maybe are the outside looking in as clear sellers. So you really don't know which team is going to decide, all right, we'll take advantage and we'll sell. And I think the few teams that do will probably sell a lot of different pieces, similar to what we saw from the Mets and the White Sox last year. And they'll get a lot of value. But if you're a team in the middle, are you the one pushing the chips forward, or one of these heavy hitters going to be the team that says, you know what, we got a 100-win club here. Let's make sure that we have that ace. And you can look at the Orioles, you can look at the Dodgers, and both of those teams can use an arm. You can look at the Phillies and say they need a bat. The Dodgers, maybe they need a bat. It's going to be really interesting to see how those four teams in particular try to play this deadline.
And I think it's going to break down late, just like I said with the Dodgers, maybe waiting to see which of their pitchers break down, if any, or if they do sustain any other injuries, who they're gonna go after at that point. And so there could be a lot of teams really late, right? Both deciding, hey, we're buyers, and hey, we're sellers. And so I think that's going to add a lot of intrigue where if we don't get some of the bigger names that we're expecting or we've been used to expecting at the trade deadline, the flurry of activity, I think, will just make it all the more interesting. And you could maybe even see a team make like 3 trades in one day and acquire a player from 3 different divisions, and maybe going into a game shorthanded to a degree, right, where they've got like 2 guys on the bench because of all these deals. So it could get chaotic, but chaos is a very good thing when it comes to baseball sometimes.